Hi, today we're talking to Leanne from Liverpool. Hi, Leanne, how are you today?
Hi, I'm good, thanks. Are you?
Good, I'm fine, thank you. So, do you want to tell us your story then?
Yeah, sure. Back in the 16th of June 2015, I had my stroke. I was 21 years old. I'd say physically, I was the fittest that I'd ever been. I was going to the gym every day. I was running. I was playing tennis a couple of times a week. In my own world, I was pretty untouchable. It started off like any other Tuesday. I packed my work bag, packed my tennis bag. I got the train to work. I did realise a few hours later that it wasn't like any other Tuesday. I was actually just sat at my colleague's desk doing some work, having a bit of a laugh and a joke when a sudden haze of like dizziness, I guess. I just felt like a little bit sick, like I was going to faint, just come over me. So I thought I'd try and make my way back to my desk, or a bit of paracetamol, a bit of water, it'd be okay. So I went to get up to go to my desk. I just remember thinking, why can't I feel my legs? Like, how hard is it to put one leg in front of another? And I just couldn't do it. I just clung onto the boards, desks, tables, anything that I could to get back to my desk without making a fuss. I was due to go into a meeting with my manager and her boss at the time, and I just messaged her and just said I can't come into the meeting. It made absolutely no sense to her. She couldn't make head nor tail of it.
Mm.
She just stood up and looked at me. She shouted, "Dan!" So the one of my colleagues, Dan, he was St John's ambulance trained. He stood up, but took one look at me, said, "She's having a stroke." I just remember thinking, I can't be having a stroke. So I just felt faint. I just thought I don't know, I was going to pass out. I just felt a little bit sick. I started shaking, vomiting, crying, sweating. Dan looked after me. He was holding my hair back while I was being sick, wiping the tears and the eyeliner down my face. He was amazing. But the paramedic come, did all my observations, took my blood pressure. Another one turned up with a wheelchair. He was like, I couldn't move. I couldn't move myself from my chair to the wheelchair. I just didn't know what was happening to me. My legs just weren't supporting me. I just didn't know why they weren't supporting me. So we got the ambulance ride to the hospital, which felt like the longest ride ever. It consisted of me being sick, telling the paramedics that I was really sorry that I was being sick, and how my mum didn't like driving, so she wasn't going to want to come to see me. But the paramedics actually said at the time that they suspected that it was a deep ear infection, because apparently that can knock your coordination and your balance off. And they said, given my age and stuff like that, that's all that they could think it
Mm.
was. So we arrived at hospital. I was given stuff anti-sickness, stuff like that. My family got there. They took me for like CT scans. I came back from the CT scan and the nurse actually said to my mum and dad, like, why do you look so worried? Like, her scans look fine. We'll keep her in overnight just to make sure. They had a brain specialist that was due in on shift the next morning. So they said that he'll have a little look at the scans, but it's okay. Like, don't worry. So before my family left, they took me to a ward that I was going to be on overnight. I went to go to the bathroom before my family left, and I just couldn't move. My legs weren't working. I couldn't get my words out. Like, my brain and my mouth weren't connecting.
Mm.
So my brother and my mum tried to help me to go to the bathroom. And one of the young nurses actually said to my mum, like, has she had a stroke? And my mum was like, apparently not. I just remember feeling fear. Like, I was just scared. I was just scared of everything. I didn't know what was happening. I just remember thinking that I just wanted to feel well. I was never a poorly child when I was younger. So this feeling of not feeling well, I just couldn't really deal with it. In the middle of the night, they actually moved me to a ward, which I later realised was the stroke ward. In the morning, the doctor did his rounds with, like, he had two trainee doctors with him. I just remember them shutting the curtains around me and doing the standard good morning, and like just muttered the words like, I'm really sorry to tell you you've had a stroke. I remember just thinking, like, no, like, not me. A stroke, like, older people have strokes.
Mm.
Like, 21, that doesn't happen. I was healthy. It doesn't happen to me. I called my family, obviously, to try and tell them, not realising that they still couldn't understand me. My words made no sense whatsoever, but my mum just picked up on the word stroke all the time.
Yeah.
I think it was in that moment that I just realised that everything had changed, like everything had changed. So I spent 18 days in hospital, had multiple CT scans, MRIs. They suspected it was my heart that had caused it. So I had like echocardiograms, blood tests, speech therapy, physio. I was eventually let out of hospital, but I think looking back now, I didn't realise that that was when the hard work was going to begin. Although it was good to get home eventually, like it's not the same. Nothing was the same. Everything was harder. The occupational therapist come to assess the house, check that I could get around, but I had my brother and sister both helping me walk. I had my mum showering me. My dad helped me up the stairs. My dog didn't leave my side because he obviously knew something wasn't quite right.
Yeah.
The smallest noise was making me jump. I'd spill my cup of tea every time a dog would make a noise. I just remember thinking that I was constantly on edge, and I was just like, what is this? Like, is this what life's going to be like now? You just can't get your head around it. Like, it just changed so fast. I remember the day after I got home from hospital, much to my mum and dad weren't very happy about it, but I just wanted to get out. I just needed to get out of the house. I needed to get out of my head. So I used to go and watch my brother play football most Sundays. So I begged him to take me with him, bless him. And I just remember in the car, I just felt sick, like my heart was pounding, because these lads that he played football with, I'd grown up with them. I'd grown up playing football with them. I'd seen half of them on a night out on the Saturday before my stroke. So like, they've gone from seeing me like this to this girl, like no makeup on, hair up, can't walk, was walking like I was drunk. I was walking like I was on a night out. So my brother, bless him, sat me down in a little deck chair, watched him for the 90 minutes. But I do think it was what I needed, because I think sometimes, especially in the early stages, you get so wrapped up in what's happened, what's going to happen and stuff like that. Like there's no normality to it, but that was definitely a little bit of normality that I needed. I think the main start to recovery for me was about 8 weeks later. I think it was around the 13th of August. I could just about walk on my own. I took to completing a 5k. It was meant to be a run, and in hospital I was telling the nurses that I was going to run it, and they were like, I don't think so. But I'd signed up for it on the day of my stroke, actually. For Crohn's and colitis. My brother suffers with Crohn's and colitis, so I'd been training. I'd been running train to do this 5k for him. So I did it anyway. We walked. My brother and sister signed up for it with me, along with a family friend. So we did walk it. It was the longest 5k of my life. But it was definitely a massive hurdle. I think it was the personal achievement, and it was the fact that that was something that 2 weeks ago I couldn't do, and I didn't know whether I was going to be able to do it again. Having a stroke also gets you a bit of a sympathy vote, because I did raise like $2.5 grand for the charity. So, you know, it's perks every now and then. But I do think I'd say that was the first massive turning point for me, because I think it made me realise that I could do anything that I put my mind to, and it was down to me how well I was going to recover. So after that, I still went on with the physio. I had 12 weeks of physio, occupational therapy. I got referred to the brain injury team because I was so young. A lot of the stroke association, a lot of like the stroke side of things, they hadn't experienced someone so young, whereas obviously brain injury team had. So I went to them, and they helped with the recovery. So once I'd finished all that, I'd been back to the gym, walking on the treadmill with my physio. I don't think I realised at that point what a big part the gym would play in my recovery. I think it allowed me to take back control when like my health and everything like that had gone out the window. I wasn't living life like a normal 21-year-old. I was watching my friends going on nights out and everything like that, and it was all stuff that I couldn't do. Whereas the gym, I walked into the gym and I wasn't that girl that just had a stroke. Like I wasn't known as that young girl, 21, had a stroke. I wasn't a stroke victim. I wasn't a stroke survivor. I was just Leanne, and that massively helped me, because in the gym you get out your own head. You're not thinking about what the future holds. You're not thinking about what had happened to you. You were literally like putting one foot in front of the other, walking, you were pushing, pulling weights. You were just there to make yourself better, weren't you? Everyone in the gym was there for the same reason, to get stronger and fitter. So it was just a massive, massive turning point for me. I did attempt returning back to tennis too, which didn't quite go as successful as I was hoping on my first appearance. I finished one match, I walked off court absolutely gutted, floods of tears. I'd gone from playing at like a decent level to not being able to move around the court. I wasn't, half of the balls I couldn't make, because by the time my brain had engaged the fact that the ball was coming, it had gone. So it wasn't very successful that first time. I did actually swear when I walked off court, I swore that I'd never step back on court again. I did calm down eventually, because I think I realised that this was either going to beat me or it was going to better me. Like, either I worked to make this happen, or I sat there and admitted that everything was over and I couldn't do things that I used to do before. I did get back on court and I'm still playing tennis. I actually played tennis last night. I'm still playing tennis now, better than I did before my stroke, to be honest. Maybe it helped.
There you
go. But yeah, that's the thing. Like, I am a firm believer that everything happens for a reason. At the time, obviously, it's very hard to think why is it happening? What is the reason behind that? Why is it happening to me? But to this day, I always say that my stroke was the worst thing that ever happened to me. I think because medically they actually found that I've got a bicuspid valve, which they didn't know about, and my heart could have failed at any point. But obviously now they know that, they can monitor it and they'll operate on it as and when they need to. So I go for a scan every like 2 years. I've got one coming up this year, to be honest, but it's good that they found it. Physically, I'm fitter and stronger than ever. The gym and tennis play a massive part of my life, because I think when you are without something, you appreciate it a lot more. So whereas I'd go here and like now and then, I appreciate a lot more what my body actually allows me to do now, which I don't think I had that before. Even mentally, I think I'm a lot stronger. The brain injury team actually told me, I was going into my final year at uni, I'd just finished a placement when I had my stroke, and the brain injury team told me that I wouldn't be able to do it. My brain wasn't up to it. I wouldn't have been able to retain the information. I'd have been too fatigued. They recommended that I took a gap year. That to me was the wrong thing to say. I didn't want to graduate without my friends, and I didn't want to have to, a year of doing nothing to me just seemed like a waste. Like, what was I going to do? Was I just going to mope around and let it get the better of me, or what? So I did actually go back to uni. I graduated with a first class honours degree, so I was sure to send the brain injury team a note to let them know how I'd done. But yeah, I think that's the main experience for my stroke. I think it makes me realise that I'm not the same person I was before. I think there'll always be that before and after a stroke, but I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing. I look back on it now, like I reflect on it. It was 6 years, obviously, in June, and I look back on it and I just think that I look at that girl, I can picture that girl lying in bed in hospital, like my family having to do everything for me. And I look at photos probably up until the last 2 years, to be honest. I look at photos after my stroke, and to me, I'm quite like dead behind the eyes. Like, there's just nothing there. It's just a lot of fear and uncertainty, just fear of everything, I guess. Like, but I think now I finally have got a little bit of my spark back. I always remember that one of the people that I used to work with, he gave me a quote when I was in hospital, and it was something about how hard is trying to rebuild yourself piece by piece with no instruction book and no clue where all the important pieces go. And that to me was a massive, because you do, I think the thing is that people, that they have to recover to who they were before, but I think you can't get there. And I think part of it is admitting to yourself that you're not going to be the same. You've been through something that has literally changed your life, but I don't see why you can't be better. Like, I think I've learned to accept who I am now,
Yeah.
and in some ways prefer it, because I've got a lot more appreciation of things, a lot more perspective on life. Like, it made me grow up an awful lot. But I do think, you know, she's been through a lot, but she's all right. But I think that's why I always say it's the best worst thing that happened to me, because I think I'm thankful for a lot of what it actually taught me.
Mm. So there's a lot of positives come out of it as well.
Yeah, I think it's hard at first. Like, I think at first, when you first have it, it seems like a massive thing. And obviously, there's still little bits now. Like, I still have a bit of weakness. I still get fatigue. I still have days my whole body just shuts down. But I think you learn more about it and you learn to appreciate it. I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing.
Yeah, you learn coping strategies, don't you?
Yes, you learn to cope with it. Like, I know that I can go to the gym, I can play tennis, I can go running and stuff like that. But I know that if I do all that for, say, 2 weeks, I know that my body's just going to shut down one day, and like, I can't get my words out. I can't string a sentence together properly. But I know my boundaries. So I know that if I push myself to that point, then I've done that to myself. But I know that it's fine. I rest up for a day and then we go again.
Well, that's it. It's you know, it is a hard thing to get your head round, and you know, at first you do just sit there and think, what's just happened? You know, you can't quite believe it. But you know, it's getting your head into gear and sort of getting yourself on to deal with what you need to deal with. Everybody's got different goals and issues to deal with, and it's just finding them. So how have you been in lockdown? Have you been working from home, or what have you been doing?
I actually got furloughed for 6 months during lockdown. They were pretty tough. We were shielding because I lived with my brother, so we were shielding my brother because he was vulnerable. I struggled with that quite a lot because, as I say, like the gym and like obviously the gym's got closed down, and the gym is my escape. Like, that's my escape from everything. Obviously, like everyone struggled with various things over lockdown and stuff like that. So the 6 months that I was furloughed, I probably struggled the most. Just in terms of boredom, like, I'm no good being left on my own. Like, I'm no good with my own thoughts. And I think that's why in hospital I was no good with my own thoughts. But I've been working for the last 6 months, 8 months, something like that. So still working from home, but I've got the gym back now and can go out for walks. So it's okay.
Well, that's good. Did they ever come up with what they think had caused your stroke?
No, so they weren't 100% sure. I've gone down as an unknown case. They think it had been my heart, because both sides of my body, I didn't just go down one side. Like my whole body, my balance and everything. I've got the cerebellum at the back of my brain, so whole body just went, whole coordination, balance and everything. They said they found that I've got a hole in my heart as well as this bicuspid valve, so they tried to close the hole in my heart the January after my stroke. I was in theatre for about 2 hours a week. It wasn't ideal. They tried to close the hole in my heart, but they couldn't get the wire that they wanted to put in. They wanted to put like an umbrella type thing in. Right. But they couldn't get it in, so they think that the hole in my heart had a tear that had amended itself. So 2 hours in theatre and they still couldn't fix it. But they said unless they were scanning my heart at the time, they can't prove anything. So it's gone down as unknown. I like to just say that I'm unique. It's special.
Yeah, I was going to say you're special.
I'm special.
In the nicest possible way.
I know, yeah, that's what I always say. My mum's always like, yeah, you are special.
That's mum's for you. Yeah. So have you got any restrictions on what you can do then with these issues with your heart, or are you just sort of going for it?
Yeah, I mean, at the minute, I had an appointment with my cardiologist the other day, and at the minute, my heart's only leaking mildly. So obviously because of my bicuspid valve, my heart leaks. So it's only mildly. So sometimes I do get a little bit breathless. I'm obviously on medication to obviously blood thinners and that from my stroke anyway, but I'm on beta blockers because my heart rate was like I'd get out of bed and it was going to like 125 just getting out of bed, like horrendous. But at the minute I've just been told that I can go about my normal life. I don't think I'm meant to lift heavy things, but I do a lot of lifting in the gym, so I'm still here to tell the story, so I just go with that. But yeah, so they're just going to monitor it, and then obviously as it leaks more, I might have to rein the exercise side of things in a little bit. But for the moment, we're okay.
Well, fingers crossed, and I suppose that's when they'd possibly look at doing surgery on it.
Yeah,
if it starts leaking a bit more.
Yeah, so I think they keep saying obviously as it deteriorates, they said it'll deteriorate faster than obviously a normal heart. So they'll just keep monitoring it. You get various opinions from various people. Like I got asked about 2 years ago, I got asked if I wanted them to operate. And I was like, I don't know how bad it is. Like I don't know if that's your job. I don't know what it is. But the heart specialist in Broad Green, he'd said, although given my age, I'd recover faster if I had it. But I think with the operation, sometimes you'd have to have it done again after like 20, 25 years.
Right.
It would get less efficient. So they've decided that they'll just wait until my heart's leaking to a point where they think they should.
Yeah.
And they'll just do it then. So we'll just see.
Well, at least they're keeping an eye on it. That's the main thing, because pre-stroke you didn't even know about it. So
yeah, exactly. That's why I always say it's a good thing, because obviously, like when I was born, like those scans and stuff weren't done on babies, so they didn't know about the hearts and stuff like that. And as I say, 20 years time, my heart could have just failed. So at least it's potentially, my stroke potentially could have saved my life further down the line. So
yeah, that's true. I mean, it seems to be that quite a few strokes are caused by problems that people have had with their heart, but problems that they've probably had since birth that aren't detected till something happens and causes them to be detected. So it's one of those situations, isn't it? It's
yeah, definitely.
You've got to go through a bad one to get to a good one, kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah, definitely, for sure. Like I do always say that, don't get me wrong, obviously, like recovering was being 21, seeing your friends going out. And there were times when I just thought, like, why me? Like, it's not fair. It's not fair that they're going out and doing this and whatever. But then at the same time, I feel like I've always said to my family, I'm glad it was me and not the rest of my family, because I'd feel helpless. Like, I know that my brother and sister, people deal with things in different ways. So like, my sister felt helpless. Like, she hated the fact that she couldn't do something for me. My brother just made his way of coping was making a laugh and a joke out of things. And I think I was glad that it was me, because it was down to me if I recovered. It was down to me whether I sat there and didn't want to do anything, or if I tried to get my life back on track. And I think it's one of those sometimes that, don't get me wrong, there's times when you can't see past it and you can't see a way out. Like there was times when I was doing physio and I just thought, there's no chance that I'm going to be a normal person again, kind of thing. Whereas now people find out that I've had a stroke and they're like amazed that happened, because they wouldn't be able to tell.
Well, that's good, and that's all down to your hard work and everything. So well done on getting to where you are. You'll be looking forward to the next couple of weeks being a tennis fan then.
Yes, can't wait. The football on at the minute, Wimbledon coming on. I like this working from home. I can have my iPad next to me with it on.
It's the first time ever that you can watch Wimbledon all the way through, not have to watch the highlights. Yeah, that was a big blow. It's things like Wimbledon not happening last year. I think was one of the, it always happens Wimbledon, whether it's raining or it's
Yeah,
sunny or what have you. And for it not to happen last year, you think, oh, hang on, we are in
yeah,
something serious because Wimbledon's not on.
yeah, exactly. Because it's these things that, well, I'm a big Evertonian, so I've got a season ticket for Everton. So obviously, like,
Um,
I normally go to the football with my brother and sister, and not going to the football, and I was just like watching it on TV, and I was like, I don't like this. Like,
I
that's how
know,
you know, like, when these sporting events and stuff like that get cancelled, and it's just
yeah.
crazy.
You forget almost that they've had a season in between the first
Yeah,
lockdown where they were finishing a season. You forget they've gone through another
yeah,
whole
a
season
whole
because none of
season.
us were there. Yeah.
No, because you weren't there. It's like it didn't happen. I've had two
Um,
birthdays within lockdown as well, so I'm like, I haven't aged. I said I'm still 25 because
yeah.
I haven't utilised those years.
Yeah, that's what we're all saying as well.
Yeah, I think that's the way it works.
Well, hopefully, fingers crossed. We're almost back on track. We've got Wimbledon on the telly. We'll
Wimbledon on the telly.
hopefully get back to football and everything like that. So
Yeah,
keep everything crossed. Well, thank
yeah.
you very much for sharing your story with us, Leanne, and tell us who you're rooting for in the tennis then.
I don't know. You see, I change my mind all the time. I quite like the underdog. I quite like Halep. Quite like the ladies, to be honest.
Ah,
I like the underdog within tennis, but we shall see.
we shall see, certainly.
Oh, thanks
Oh,
for having me.
all right. Thank you, Leanne. Bye.